I wanted to talk to you and have you talk too about fat in general because I've been craving so much fat and what the effects of it have on the brain. And I'll chime in a little bit too on why the guides say this is important. But I have spent the last 3 weeks eating 4 eggs, pasture-raised eggs every morning,
Okay.
and grass-fed or grass-finished, because I think grass-finished butter is better, but grass-fed butter, like I'm talking 4 or 5 tablespoons in a day. Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. I am super excited because today I have a co-host, and that is Kristine Freelund. You guys met her before with all the fun frequency device talk. Welcome, Kristine. Thank you for being my co-host today.
Well, thank you for having me, Johanna. Yeah, hi guys. Good to be here again.
So I want to talk about an interesting topic that has come up for me in the last, I don't know, couple of months. So I have been craving animal products like nobody's business. Like I've been craving red meat, though I still don't eat a lot of it. I've been craving turkey. I've been craving eggs. I've been craving fat. And I was struggling for a little while because I'm sure, Christine, you know that for like at least 3 years, I was almost fruitarian. I was eating mostly fruit because I was healing my adrenals. And I wasn't really eating much of any animal products. And I'm a big lover of cheese. So this shit was not easy. But I had to take a break from it because of its, it was a little inflammatory, especially, when you're not eating the greatest cheese. But anyway, I have over the past few months, I've been really feeling bloated and just not great eating the same way that I've been eating, though I have brought in Greek yogurt and I was eating Greek yogurt with pea protein, but I realized I really wasn't having a whole lot of fat in my diet. And so I was realizing that I was like programmed with this belief when you wake up that you have to be vegan or you have to be raw vegan or you can't eat animal products because if you do then this source won't speak through you're
Low
low vibration.
vibration.
I mean, and we know that you are what you eat, so the quality of the meat you eat is important, but
Sure.
um I wanted to talk to you and have you talk too about fat in general because I've been craving so much fat and what the effects of it have on the brain. And I'll chime in a little bit too on why the guides say this is important. But I have spent the last 3 weeks eating 4 eggs, pasture-raised eggs every morning,
Okay.
and grass-fed or grass-finished, because I think grass-finished butter is better, but grass-fed butter, like I'm talking 4 or 5 tablespoons in a day.
Nice.
And my bloating is almost gone. Like
Mhm.
I feel so much better. And I just want to like, let's talk about this because why is it so important? Like, why is it so important for us to have fat? Like, what is the deal with this? What is happening in my
Oh,
body?
goodness. Well, the brain alone, if we take the water weight out of the brain, right, it's estimated that about 60% of the brain is fat, and it needs to stay at this level for optimum performance.
60%?
60%. Isn't that
Holy
crazy?
shit.
Yeah. And so when we start to cut out fats, we start to notice cognitive decline. We start to notice problems with memory, right? A low fat diet has actually been associated with dementia.
I read that.
Yeah, yeah. But back in the 90s, fat became the villain.
I know.
Showing my age here, but everything was,
Everything
fat.
was fat free.
Yeah, and Olestra came out, which I don't know if anyone remembers, and I'm going to be a little crude, right? It was like these fat-free potato chips, and they would just make you shit your pants.
I never heard of those. What were they called?
Oh, it was Olestra.
Yeah, I never heard of
Is.
those.
And it was in like every single product, and they really wanted to push it. So all these articles came out about how horrible fat is. And we started to understand unsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat and all this stuff. And animal products really became villainized as
Yeah.
well. Right. But more and more science comes out, and we start to realize that there's massive benefits to all of this. Right. So when it comes to fat in the brain, it's helping with this cellular integrity. It's helping with the nutrient exchange that's happening. And when we
Okay.
don't have it, we start to notice all of these different things. And one of the biggest ones is DHA, which I'm going to slaughter. And I actually had to write it down, right? Because we just call it DHA, docosahexaeric acid. And
No one's
this
ever
is
going to remember that.
great. But what this one is responsible for is it makes up a massive amount of the fat that we have in the brain, and it's not one that we can process and create within the body.
Wait a
And
second. DHA, that is something that my mom gene is kicking in. That's in
yeah,
baby formula.
it is,
Okay.
right? And now we could go off on the whole colostrum
Yeah.
tangent. Oh my gosh, like life
So that's
changing.
what's in colostrum is the DHA. Is that what you're saying?
It's in, I think, okay, don't quote
We
me on
opened the door, so let's go in it.
right? So colostrum is the element that is in breast milk or mother's milk, any mammal's milk after giving birth.
Right.
And so it is responsible for all these amazing things. And now we're going to go into our second brain, which is the gut
Yes.
and the proper use and development of it. So all of these things are necessary. And so, yeah, I believe, and I don't remember this one, so I'm even cringing thinking about saying it. I think there is higher levels of DHA in mammal milk post birth,
Okay.
right?
We're
So,
not we're not telling you that we're experts in this. We're
God
having a
no.
conversation about some knowledge that we have and some questions that we have. So, use your own discernment here, people. No, we're not the Bible.
Right. But fat helps to, it forms so many different things. It forms the cell membranes, it protects integrity of the neurons, but specifically DHA is working with, and I'm probably going to slaughter this one too, the myelin, which I think of as the puffy jacket that we wear. It's the insulation of the brain. It's all that white matter that when you see
Oh,
a brain,
okay.
right? And so it's absolutely necessary for the process to happen. And when I was going through my brain injury, and stop me at any time because good luck, we'll just keep talking, right? Um, I needed to have more fat. And there's this kind of concept that our foods actually reflect visually the healing element in it. So
Okay.
kidney beans, named kid,
Right.
look like our kidneys.
Yeah.
Walnuts are very high in DHA and happen to look very much like the brain, right?
Which is interesting because a couple of months ago, before I changed my diet, I could not get enough walnuts, or I was eating a ton of sweet potatoes, but the way that I cook them is in coconut oil.
Yes, and
So,
coconut is miracle maker.
yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I want to say real quick, because this change happened for me right after. So energetically, I was telling you guys before that around mid-December we started to move into the shift. The shift's been happening for a long time, guys, like
Mhm.
for a long time. But we started to actually move into the fifth dimensional frequency on a planet wise around the middle of December, if we're going to put a quote unquote time on it. So it was about mid-January is when I started feeling this craving for fat. So instead of eating fat, I was, I mean, obviously coconut oil is fat, but I was craving sweet potatoes too, which is, there's a whole nother thing for that. But I was like soaking 2-3 tablespoons of my a whole sweet potato cut up into that fat. I was craving walnuts. I was craving high fat food, but I'm not going to go eat a bunch of processed shit, because that's most people think when they're craving high fat food, they want to go through the drive through and get Chick-fil-A or something. So it's just like, I just went into that. So after about 2 weeks of those cravings, I sat and connected to my team and was like, what's going on here? Like thinking it's just personal, right? What's going on with me? And while it is personal, I'm realizing it now. I think it's going to affect everybody. The frequencies that are coming in from the sun, known as plasma rays, right? We have plasma in our blood. The frequency intensity is something that the human vessel it has not yet to experience. That's why the body's ascending, but it's having an effect on the brain. The brain is needing more cushion, for lack of a better fucking term, because of the amount of currents that are coming in, the electrical currents, right? Because we're electrical beings. And so it's short circuiting a lot of us. And with more increased fats, it helps to ground it better and support it better. So that's in the most human way possible. I can bring that message through, because that's not the way they said it, but that's the way I'm going to convey it. And that's what made sense to me. And so it gave me a little bit of a permission to go, okay, well, I'm gonna start adding in some more products that I feel called to, that had a higher fat in them.
I love that. And that goes right into that myelin sheath formation, right? That
I'm never gonna
insulation.
remember that word.
Think of it as like, okay, again, I'm gonna date myself, right? Ethernet cables and how they all had that kind of plastic around it to protect
Yeah.
the wires. That's what a myelin sheath would be, right? So it's going through the brain and it's insulating these nerve fibers that are doing the connections together. So now we can process quicker, we think quicker, our memory starts to improve, all these amazing things happen.
Boy, that went hand in hand, didn't it?
It's beautiful. Yeah. I love when spirit shows us things, right? And it's like, and I'm saying, you know, I'm a nerd, right? So I get the download, then I'm like, okay, validation,
Let
right?
me do some research.
What does it mean? What is it? How do I explain it in that third dimensional aspect so that it hopefully reaches a bigger audience, right?
Hell yeah.
So,
Because the what shit, you guys, when they, I mean, if I'm speaking to the choir, if you get a lot of downloads, but sometimes that shit comes through, it's foreign as hell. You're like, I have to ground this and make it as kindergarten as possible.
and that's such a perfect segue into what I want to say is I believe with these higher frequencies coming in, if anyone knows their doshas, right? I think I'm high in Vata and I need to be pulled back down to earth. I am
Mm-hmm.
constantly up in the air,
Yeah.
up here, like good luck pulling me down.
Same.
Um, right. And so I do believe food has a frequency, but I don't think frequency is necessarily a bad word. And I think so many spiritual people get this idea that like, oh, it's a lower frequency. No, we need lower frequency. You
We need
need
all the frequencies.
yeah, everything is here and it's all a gift, right? And so when we can eat these quote unquote heavier foods, it's going to sit in our system longer. And as
Mm-hmm.
long as they're clean and beautiful and properly processed, right? I'm not talking about chicken McNuggets.
Chicken McNuggets.
Right? It's
No
a
French fries soaked in freaking canola oil.
yeah. And I think there was a study done in like 2019 that showed that 80% of Americans were suboptimal in their DHA levels in the blood. And so if we're not eating animal fats, if we're not eating fatty fish, and for vegans, the nut seeds, I think I mentioned walnuts, there's like chia, there's flax, there's different ways to get it. We're not processing as quickly up here. And for
Yeah.
anyone, again, if you know you're getting the downloads, it's not a matter of making sense of the download,
Yeah.
right? I don't know about you, but when I get downloads, sometimes I don't understand what it is, but I know I got to jot it down because the right pieces are going to come out to the right person,
Yeah,
right?
because well, they bring it. The guys always say they give you nuggets, so they never speak in complete sentences. They give you nuggets, and sometimes you only have a piece of it. You need like three
Puzzle
more
piece.
downloads to make it make sense.
Absolutely. And that's what I've been shown is like a lot of us have been put all over the globe. We are separated for a reason,
Hmm.
right? But we have a puzzle piece and someone else has it. And when the two stories come together, that beautiful link is created and it's like, holy shit, okay, this makes so much more sense. And without this conversation, without this connection, it never would have come to full circle or
Yeah,
definitely not as quickly.
yeah.
So
Because she was just in town, and I saw her, and I was like, we were walking, and I was like, I think I have an idea because I know you know this stuff, and I don't know as much about it as you do, and there's no point of me going down the rabbit hole when I can just get on a Zoom and be like, let's talk about it because she's got the info. I'm not going to retain all this information, but so it just works. But I have another thing that it keeps popping in my head, so I want to talk about it. And I read it somewhere, and I can't remember where I read it, but it blew my mind because we are so programmed to the opposite of that in which is actually true. Again, with the low fat and the pyramids, the food pyramid being basically upside down, and there's so many things that we have been, those powers that be have programmed us to believe that are actually backwards or inverted, right? Which is
yeah,
interesting because the guides always tell me that Earth, everything here is inverted, right? So spiders, we're scared of them because they're really gigantic, just a side note, because everybody needs to know that. That's why you're fucking scared of spiders. But the thing is, I read, not to go off two tangents, but cholesterol is important for the brain.
It's
But,
synaptic connection. We
but
can't have
aren't we trained that
connection,
cholesterol is bad?
right? Just like the saturated fats. Saturated fats became a villainized word, and that is animal fat.
Right.
Right? We need these things. And same thing, there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, and it's absolutely necessary. But
What
when
would
we
be
start
bad
cutting,
cholesterol?
it's a really good question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay. It's
I
a
always
thing.
think
It's
like French fries, canola oil, right? All the
processed stuff.
yeah. And
Yeah.
let's, I mean, I think most of us know this by now, but like there is no canola seed. Okay,
Yeah.
canola oil, I believe, was actually created. It was like a byproduct of World War II or something. I hope someone can actually
Canola oil
correct
was, or vegetable oil?
me. Canola.
When
We
I
should
always
not
wondered,
consume
when I
canola
saw
oil,
vegetable oil, I always was like, what vegetable are they pulling this oil from?
right? Yeah.
Because
If
it's
you
not real. It's
can't
not really from a
identify it,
vegetable, is it?
no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. And even olive oil, which is one of the main sources that we should really be taking in raw as fat, right?
It's fake. That's the biggest faked oil
So
out there.
many. You got to
Mm.
put it in your fridge. You got to see if it solidifies,
Yep.
right? In order to make sure it truly is cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. And then we never heat it. If you're going to heat it, like you don't put it in the pan and let it smoke, like you just ruined it. Like give me your money and I'll
Yeah.
throw it in the garbage for you instead.
Yeah.
Like
And I didn't learn that until recently that you're not supposed to cook with olive oil.
The smoking point is too low.
Yeah, yeah. And so I did cook with olive oil for many years, but about 3 years ago, I just had this intuitive, I just listened to my intuition. I moved to avocado oil.
Yes.
But I learned about avocado oil and olive oil being highly faked. And the way that I learned to was to read the bottle and make sure one, it's single sourced.
hmm
And then because if it says, like, if you go to Walmart and you look at the back of an olive oil, sometimes it'll say a product of Italy and this country. That shit is fake as hell. Do not buy it.
hmm
But if you buy a single source, it's more likely pure. And then just 6 months ago, I learned to put olive oil in the fridge and see if it's solidified. But I don't even use olive oil anymore at all. I just use avocado oil.
Olive oil is so beautiful as a dressing or to go over a steak or anything
Yeah.
after it's been seared, right?
Now
Because
I
it's
will take a tablespoon of olive oil at least.
perfect.
Usually like I haven't done it in a couple of months, but I went through like a period where once a week, or no, once a month, I would do a whole week where I took a shot of olive oil with cayenne pepper.
Okay. I like that.
So I don't know what it was doing, but that's what I felt called to do.
That's beautiful. Well, I
Yeah.
know from my experience in the past with migraines, a naturopath had taught me this, right? I was on so many different medications and everything, and it just wasn't working. Um, taking I think it was like a quarter teaspoon or a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper, the pain receptors in the mouth were so focused on that, the pain leaves the head.
Oh,
So it's amazing what can happen. Yeah, when
I
we
should
take,
remember that next time I have a headache.
right? Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely phenomenal. But going back to olive oil, like
Yeah.
there's so many people, we need omega-3s, right? And omega-6s and the ratio that we're at anymore, omega-6 is now like 16 to 1. And when we look back at when we were eating properly, it was more like a 4 to 1 or 1 to 4 ratio, right? And now we're at 16 to 1. So these omega-3s are what we need to get in the system. And olive oil does naturally contain them. So take
Okay.
a teaspoon a day or whatever, like that is brilliant. That is a beautiful way of doing it. I do have friends that I'm not saying that you should consume ice cream. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but putting olive oil over like vanilla ice cream and a little bit of sea salt is supposed to be mind-blowingly delicious.
I saw a TikTok of somebody doing that and I thought,
Yeah.
what in the world are you doing?
Yeah, I was in a culinary instruction class way back in the day when I was in university. And one of the chefs that was in the class with me, that is how his dad ate ice cream. And I was like, that's so weird. I remember trying it, I haven't had it since.
Was it
But
good?
yeah, it was good. It was really good. It
Is that
made
like an
it
Italian thing, you think?
probably, I would assume so, right? Italian, Mediterranean. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
made it creamier and just that tongue coating that you get.
Yeah.
Almost like when you eat a scone and it has all the melty butter on it. You're just,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, you're making me want it. Oh, that's not, oh, that. All my little receptors just lit up with that one.
When I was healing from my brain injury, I was eating an entire avocado a day and probably an entire stick of butter. Obviously, not just unwrapping it and eating it, but making sure I was taking in as many good fats as possible to really
Yeah.
support my brain in regenerating and healing these different neural
So
networks.
I have seen, so I ended up on carnivore TikTok, the carnivore diet.
Yes,
And so I'm watching people legit just take a stick of butter and bite into it and eat it. Which, listen, I love me some butter, but I ain't gonna eat it like that. Um, I love butter, but my question was, is there's so many misconceptions in that because people think like, where do you get your vitamin C? Where do you get your vitamins if you're not eating fruit or vegetables? Where do you, aren't you going to clog your arteries? And one thing that my dad used to tell me, because I lived on the Atkins diet most of my life, like I was
Okay.
a low carb queen, and it's only because I felt better. But I went on the yo-yo like most people, right? Back in the day, I would drink and then I'd eat carbs and then I'd go back on the diet. Most of us went through this period of our life. But my dad used to tell me, like, think about when people were, before processed food existed. I mean, really, if you look back before before the 80s, honestly, I think is when the major transition happened. When you look at the 60s, 50s, 40s, people were not overweight. People were
Mm-mm.
not overweight, and we didn't have really a lot of processed food back then. But even go back even before that, what did the cave people eat? I mean, nobody was making them chips or bread. So they were
Eating
eating
cereal.
berries, they were eating animals. And the difference was, right, they're wild caught. So these animals weren't living in treacherous conditions and being infused with fear because they're in fear of their life. So a lot of our animal products are they're think about the trauma that you hold in your body, right? It's in your body, it's in your tissue, it's in your organs. It's the same for the animal. So I do believe that if you are going to eat animal products, that pasture raised, grass fed animals that get to roam the wild and live a peaceful life are going to be the best you're going to, but I also believe in praying over your food and infusing it with with pure love to help change the vibration as well. So I wanted to bring that in, but if we think about how they used to eat, like that's how they always used to eat. But the carnivore diet, it does, I mean, there's a little fear for me around that because it's just so it's literally just meat and eggs and butter and salt. Like, do you
And
have any thoughts
berries
on
and some
people who are
fruit.
eating that way?
And you get berries and some fruits and other things on the carnivore diet as well.
You
So,
do?
yeah. So I want you to think of the exact analogy that you were just bringing up, right?
Okay.
Historically going. And as hunters and gatherers, that's exactly what we were doing. We weren't taking the time to, harvest grain and mill it. Think of the entire process. And if you're not familiar with it, quick Google search. It's not like we just go out and grab the wheat and eat it. There's
Right.
an entire process that it has to go through because it has a protective shell around it that has to be removed for us to actually get to the wheat germ. And the same
Yeah.
thing goes with so many different seeds and nuts. And that's why soaking is so important. But I'm not going to go off on that tangent. When it comes to the carnivore diet, you are still getting some glucose, you are still getting sugars and necessary vitamins and nutrients through these particular fruits. But then there are other fruits that have been so hybridized or even genetically modified that they're not what our ancestors were eating.
Yeah.
Bananas is what I always go to, right? And trust me, I love a good banana, but like it is not the same by any
They hurt
means.
my stomach now.
Yeah. And it was like the 60s or the 70s. I don't know why in my brain the 60s and the 70s are like lumped into a box, right? The
Same.
entire crop, I believe, was actually wiped out by a particular fungus. And so the bananas that we eat today have been hybridized in order to resist this fungus. But this is also why when you eat banana candy, you're like, how the fuck is this banana? That's how bananas used to taste.
No shit.
Dead. Yeah. Yeah.
I also heard someone say bananas used to have seeds in them, and today they don't.
Mhm.
So that should be our cue that it's not original banana.
Right? A little concerning. But yeah, eating berries are so beautiful and they don't impact your glucose levels too much. Right? Cognitive decline has been associated with, or not cognitive decline. Yeah, cognitive decline has been associated with the brain's or the body's inability to like process glucose, metabolize it.
Yeah.
And so when we go into the carnivore diet, and we're different humans are walking around.
Yeah.
So if you are a human like me, I could live on red meat alone. I swear.
And that's
Give
what
me,
some of these people are doing. They're not eating any fruit or
yeah,
vegetables. They're just legit like having a half a pound of ground beef and 5 eggs for breakfast, you
yeah.
know?
And I want the fat in it. Like I want all of it, right? A rare steak. And like, I feel like Popeye, like
Yeah.
post spinach. Like that is my body thrives on it. When I got off the vegan diet, I remember everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna get so sick." I sat down to a New York steak and I was like, I haven't felt this good in years.
Yeah.
And that was a very quick shift for me. But then, yeah, there's so much natural good fat in these animals, but these are the ones just like you were talking about, right? Pasture raised, grass fed. They're not sitting there eating all of these genetically modified grains and everything else that's going into our body because what they ate is what we're going to be processing
Yeah.
too. Same reason, like when we eat oysters or anything like that, like we are filtering out. You're going to get there can be high levels of heavy metals because they are filtering it and now we're taking them and consuming them too. So you have to think about the source of the food. And oh my gosh, you were talking about the fear. As a child, I could tell if an animal didn't die properly. I could taste it. So
I
my
bet.
parents would get so mad because we go out for burgers, right? I love cheeseburgers. I would take one bite and I'd be like, this tastes like death. And I'd put it down. And I would say that as a small kid, this tastes like death. And they just look at me so perplexed. And then the next day, different cheese for anything like that. My mom would make dinner sometimes and I would taste it in the ground beef and I'd be like,
Yeah.
can't do it. So it
That's so
is.
interesting because you're literally, the animal was probably sensing its death, knowing that it was just waiting to die, in fear of its death. And I wonder if there anybody else has kids that are that way, or just maybe they don't even say those words, but they, it might be the same meal, but using different animal, different meat, the child can't tolerate it. So that's an interesting point to make. I didn't think about
Um,
that.
Imagine that being the first burger you've ever had, and you're like, I don't like burgers
Right.
for the rest of your life, right? Because I can even talking about it, like I feel it right here. I feel it right here. Like, no, yeah, yeah, it's
And
crazy.
it's interesting the whole vegan craze because now listen, I do think that there is a point of it when we go on this path because a lot of times, and I can only speak for me and people that I know that have kind of walked similar paths, but when we go through our awakening, one of the usually the first things we do is we start to change our diet and our environment, right? These are usually the things we get rid of the aluminum, the fluoride, we start to eat better. And so a lot of people go to vegan, but I think in my opinion, and I think that it happens because we are we are shifting frequencies really fast. And so eating a lot of fruit is a extremely high frequency fruit. It healed my adrenals and I'm so grateful for them. And I love berries, pineapple, apples, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, that's my jam. And I think there's a point of it is it helps to kind of clean us out and clear us out of all the processed stuff. But it's staying that way for, even 5 or 10 years. What I've seen from my own research is how sick people get.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wow, like how could you look that sick if you're just eating off the land and fruits and berries? But it makes so much sense because the berries don't have what animal products have.
Hmm. We are continually evolving beings, therefore, our consuming needs to be continually evolving as well.
Yeah.
Everything is a season. And I mean, I think being vegan can be absolutely beautiful.
Mhm.
I don't look, and I know you don't either. Like, neither of us look down on vegans.
No, I don't
And
care
no,
what you eat.
yeah. And I know vegans that are amazing that do not look down on, meat eaters
Yeah.
either. But yeah, this idea that, this is the way that everyone has to eat, like, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. There are probably people out there that the idea of consuming that much fat might make them incredibly ill.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a game changer. Like I remember my memory and my just so many things changing when I really started to consume a lot more fat. But with that, you can't do that and then be taking in a ton of complex carbohydrates,
Okay.
right?
Why?
The body, it's ketosis.
Okay.
Right? In order to process that fat and actually change the body over into making that the energy source, glucose is going to change. Sugars are going to change into fat, right? And that's the easy, accessible one. So it's going to go there before it goes to the fat. So if we start to reduce that down, now the body's going directly into this fuel source,
Yeah.
but it can't do both for whatever reason. So we need to make sure that if we're doing a really high fat diet, that we're not taking in a bunch of cereal and breads and pastas. And you can find amazing substitutes. What is it called? Miracle noodles. They're made of
Oh, I can't stand those things.
oh really? Oh,
I'm a texture person and
okay.
I remember when those came out and they came in like this bag with like liquid in them,
Yep.
and I was like, I'm so desperate for some pasta. I'll try just about anything. And I tried them and I was like, I can't do it. I even tried spaghetti squash and I couldn't do that. I'm a texture person.
Oh, see,
Oh,
I love spaghetti squash too.
I tried. I was like, man, I just want some pasta, but that wasn't it.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Right.
But even that, isn't that processed? Like what is that even made of?
It is konjac or cognac. It's like a sweet potato or a yam fiber.
Huh.
So yeah, it's absolutely processed. Absolutely processed, but much lower in carbohydrates, much less likely to spike the glucose.
Yeah. And
So
that's important because I that's where I started before I went into the fat thing was really learning to what foods spike my blood sugar. So interestingly enough, I noticed because I blend my fruit, I put everything in a blender. I don't have I'm not someone who likes to sit down and spend a lot of time eating. That's never been my jam. So I'm like, let me eat something that I can eat and just move on with my life. If I had to eat all the fruit that I consume, it would take me 2 hours. So I just throw it all in my Vitamix and go about my day. But I started to notice that when I drank those smoothies that I got hungrier. It like spiked my blood sugar
yeah,
because I from what I Googled and researched, again, I have to take it with a grain of salt, but blending the fruit changes everything.
isn't that crazy? Who would
Yeah,
have thought?
it was wild. I was like, what? But I wonder if adding in chia seeds, adding in fat and fiber to the blended, if that would cut it, would do you think that would work?
This is where I would look at something like the zone diet,
Okay.
right? That's really looking at a ratio of carbohydrates to fat to protein and finding that magical code that works for you,
Yeah.
right? My body, when I do high fat, it started to impact my liver. And so my mentor was like, you need to add like a pinky nail of sugar. And I was like, oh, I don't consume sugar. And he's like, okay, do honey, do coconut sugar. He's like, but your body will process everything better with a little bit of sugar. So depending
Okay.
on the fruits that go in, yeah, it could absolutely work,
Yeah.
right? But if it's like mangoes and bananas and like we're spiking the glucose, and everyone's different. I don't know if mangoes are spiking for everyone, right? But yeah, find what works for you. And it doesn't
Yeah.
even take that much fat either, right?
Mm.
Like we don't need to go crazy, especially when it is processed. And if we're doing something like coconut oil and going with like the medium chain triglyceride MCT oil, right? That's the one fat, if I remember correctly, that is the one fat that is absorbed directly through the stomach lining.
Interesting.
So it goes,
MCT oil.
yep. Yeah.
I used to put a tablespoon of that in my smoothies back in the day.
I love putting it in bone broth because I don't drink coffee, right? When I was doing coffee, bulletproof coffee. I
Yeah,
wanted it to
that's what I was going to go to. I said, remember the
oh,
craze of bulletproof where people put butter in their coffee?
so good. There's still a place down here called Protein House in Scottsdale, and you can still get a bulletproof latte, and it's just delicious.
I've also seen the craze of raw dairy coming back. And I thought,
Yes.
yeah. And so it's interestingly enough that certain cheeses, my body does not do well with.
Mhm.
And pre-grated cheese is one of them because it has all that casing shit on it to keep it from
Yep.
clumping. And so I tend as much as possible to buy hard block cheese. But so I know what cheeses I can have, but when I switched my diet over to more of a high protein, a high fat diet, and I'm literally equal fat to protein, and I'm probably getting between 6 and 12% carbs coming. So that's about where I'm at right now. But what I noticed was I'd switched from drinking an almond milk based creamer that did have 4 grams of added sugar per tablespoon, which I was drinking quite a bit of that. I was like, damn, I didn't realize how much sugar I was actually bringing into my diet. And I loved that creamer. Oh my God. My mouth waters thinking about it. But anyways, so I was like, well, let me go to a half and half, right? My body was like, fuck this. And I realized it's the ultra processed dairy. And so I started noticing that more places, including Sprouts, sells raw milk now.
Hmm.
And I get mad because I know, I just got on the iced coffee craze. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I drink decaf, which is processed in itself. But every now and then I like to have an iced decaf. And it's like been ruined for me because the half and half just like I have immediate inflammation in my gut.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Immediate.
That's why the bulletproof coffee to me was such a game changer because my body does not like processed dairy.
Yeah. My
Anyway,
body doesn't like process anything.
and then mini tangent, but Pfizer just bought out a lot of the rennet
What's
in this
that?
country. It is it's used to make cheese. So a pharmaceutical company that makes schmaxines just bought mass majority of the rennet, which means that they have control over pretty much all of the American cheese making, if you think about that.
Okay, we're gonna go down this rabbit hole for a second. So two things. One is I just learned that there are bills passed in certain states, and mine, California, where I am now, is one of
Yep.
them, where they are schmacksining fruit
Hmm.
so that when you eat it, that shit is in it.
Lettuce is one of the biggest ones that I read about.
And the bill was about marking it as such. And I'm thinking, read between the lines that shit is already in the fruit and vegetables, or they wouldn't be passing a bill to label it.
Correct.
That should be like, we should all be suing the government right now because that is disgusting. And two, what was the other one I was going to say? Oh, that cheese is as addictive as heroin
Yes.
because of
After
some
behavior.
ingredient.
Yeah. It
Now,
has a
do you know about that? Is that a naturally occurring thing or is that a processed thing? Do you have any clue?
I don't have any clue.
I think I might need to go down that rabbit hole because I was like, that makes sense because I was legit addicted to cheese. I would put cheese on everything.
Well, my ex-husband would take sharp cheddar cheese and dip it in ranch dressing, right? He also ate butter like straight as a kid, like,
Well, he might be a little odd duck, but
or he was highly intuitive and none of us,
right.
right? He's like, this is gonna make me feel great. I know.
Mhm.
No, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's crazy what we can do with food and things. And that's why, I mean, even buying organic at the store is questionable anymore, right?
Right.
And
I heard from a farmer that the organic is no better than the other because
it
they're just
can
spraying the
be
organic with more organic pesticide than
things,
the other stuff.
right? Just like plastic water bottles, how they used to have, what was it, BPAs? And
Yeah.
now they have PFAs, which we know now PFAs are just as horrible to our brain and our body, right?
Yeah.
So it's really crazy like how much research you need to do. I mean, I love the idea of having a local farmers market. Here in Arizona, ours just ended because it's April 30th and now it's going to be 120. Nobody wants to stand at
No
a,
shit.
right? But like I love that idea. But then you also have to know who are these vendors?
Hmm.
Because someone had told me, and I haven't looked into it, but they can just go to Walmart and they can buy produce and show up at the farmers
I
market.
know.
So, like, have you visited these farms? Do you truly know where the cows come from? Like, there's that old, oh gosh, what show was that? And the couple was like sitting down at a restaurant in Portland, right? And they're like asking about the chicken and was the chicken raised properly? And did you know the chicken's name? And did it live it, right? And it was like you have to almost hit that, like be like that. Like when it comes to salmon, right? One of the highest ways to get DHA, wild salmon, hands down. I won't eat Atlantic. I will not eat Atlantic if I can help it.
Why?
It tastes different to me, going back into that idea of death. right? And the
Oh,
majority of Atlantic salmon in this nation is farmed. So now
yeah.
it's living in this little net, eating pig shit. I'm not joking, right? And now we're eating that. So like, you gotta do a little research, and it shouldn't drive anyone crazy because,
Yeah.
like blessing the food is so important.
Yeah.
And my friend Heather taught me one of the quickest ways to bless, and I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Put your hands over your food and laugh.
Oh, laugh.
Just
Because
let,
that's joy.
yes.
Oh,
How
that's brilliant. I love that.
yeah, isn't that brilliant? I was like, oh my gosh. Because yeah, I'll have to sit down on some days and I just got off a raging phone call and I'm like, thank you for no, it's not coming out.
Yeah.
Hands over the food and eat.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Because what I do is I put my hands over the food and I close my eyes and I just visualize my heart opening and I literally will feel energy coming out of my hands and I don't move my hands until the energy stops. And so that's what I do, but that can sometimes take a bit of time, and I don't really care what people think, so that doesn't bother me, but laughing, like that's quick and easy and I can pull on something that's going to bust me out, pretty fast. So that's brilliant. I love that idea. Because joy, that's like one of the highest frequencies.
Exactly. Let's talk about intuitive eating. I mean, so many of us, like, we can go down the rabbit holes and we can research. One of the first things I train my clients on when they really want to get back in touch with their intuition is the right hand, left hand game. And it's so silly and it's so stupid, right? But like, if I'm out at a restaurant and you can do this under the table so you don't look like a nut job, I don't care. And you do this. I think I actually did this. And do I want this omelet or this omelet, right? But I'm going to be like, okay, I'm at a Mexican restaurant and I really want beef tacos. But these cheese enchiladas look really good. And I'll go body. I have beef tacos in my right hand. I have cheese enchiladas in the other. Body, which one is going to sustain you the most?
Yeah.
And I'll feel a rush of energy or a tingling or a warming in the hand.
Yeah.
Go with it.
Yeah.
Don't second guess yourself. Don't change no matter what. Your body just told you exactly what it wants.
Yeah.
Reward it and fuel it and go with it. And you'll start to notice and identify these patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I teach them the same thing with anything. I say close your eyes and just like tune into your body, to your energy field and ask it like, what would it feel like if I ate this? Does your body contract? Does your energy contract or does it expand? Okay. Just say reset, take a breath and
Yeah.
ask it the other thing and feel which one feels better because that's what's going to tell you. And because I am a huge proponent, and anybody who knows me, who's listened to me or followed me for a long time, I'm a preacher of the very first thing we all should learn is how to read our energy, how to read our own body, because that is your fucking dictionary. That's your foundation for everything. If you don't know who you are and what you need and that means, how are you going to be able to discern the difference for someone else? You
Yeah.
have to know your foundation.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent really quick if I
Yeah,
can.
do it.
So,
Yeah.
Marissa Peer, one of the, I mean, amazing psychologists, celebrity therapist, like one of the best hypnosis people in the world. She'll take you through in her training muscle testing. And what she does is she brings someone up to the front and then she goes, okay, I'm going to show you the two most toxic foods in the world. Right? You should absolutely, under no circumstance, be putting these in your body. And so, for those that don't know muscle testing, you kind of put the arm up and someone pushes on the resist, and you're putting all your strength in it, right? So, she'll pick like the most burly guy in the class and they'll come up and just resist, resist. She'll take artificial sweetener, such as Splenda or any of the colored packets, right? She'll sprinkle a little bit in his hand, resist. All the strength leaves his body because we absorb so much through the skin. And simply by putting a little here, all the strength leaves, right? Now, the other one that she did was margarine.
Which is, oh my God, I have to say this real fast because you know that liquid butter, that parquet shit you squeeze?
Yes, yeah.
My ex-husband would bathe his baked potatoes. Like you could not see the brown of the potato in the squeezed butter. And then he would microwave it, which another thing I don't use is a microwave. But I looked at him one day and I said, "You're eating plastic.
Yeah.
That shit is
Petroleum.
plastic."
It is petroleum.
Ah,
Yeah, these are not meant to be consumed, and it is horrible. Like, put a fucking stick of butter on it, and you are a million times better,
eat the real thing.
right? But again, yeah, potato high in carbs, but yeah, you'll sleep really well.
Yeah.
No, I want a baked potato slathered in butter. That sounds really good.
It is. It does sound really good.
But yeah, you can muscle test these things. So what you can do is make the OK symbol and have someone, a friend, a loved one, try and get these two fingers apart, right?
Yeah.
To see what they can do. And then pick up and have someone do it and see if the strength leaves. That is not for you to eat.
Do you
That is
think
not
it works
for
the
you to eat.
same if you do it for yourself?
Yes, when you practice properly. The problem is
Yeah.
I think most of us get in our head about it.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And so same thing when I'm like body testing and I'm going body, which do you want? I'm not letting it come from here.
Yeah.
If tacos pops up or like really want a quesadilla, no, I gave these choices. Like, what am I feeling in the body?
Yeah.
Have to feel
Exactly.
it from the neck down.
Yeah.
That's my rule.
Yeah. And that's good because you can use her technique or mine because it's the same thing. I always say like you have to focus on the sensations that you feel. It's not about the ego. My only question is I never really was a big muscle tester. I mean, I've done it, but what do you think about people who say like we just like animals, we store our trauma in our body? So I'm going to bring this up. It's kind of a side thing. When we and this is why this I'm squirreling, but it's a purpose. When I meet somebody relationship wise who is a safe and healthy relationship,
Mhm.
everything in my body wants to run because it's not familiar with that, right? My body's familiar with toxic assholes. So that's like, oh, you're home to me, right? Because that's what it's used to. So using that example, if we have all of this trauma and fear in our bodies, what says that our body is giving us the correct answer?
The body will always give the correct answer. The brain is the one that's living in trauma, right? The brain
Okay.
is the organ that's associated with the past that's there as a protective mechanism in order to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So I tell my
The
clients,
brain triggers the nervous system.
yeah, if they just left a toxic work environment
Yeah.
and go in and they're like, Kristine, it was an amazing environment and I just felt so great. I'm like, cool, turn it down, right? It's a, what is it? Oh God, what is it called when like a captor starts to really sympathize and
Stockholm syndrome.
yes, right? And the
Yeah.
body will, or the brain will do the same thing with foods. That's why they're known as comfort foods. If anyone
Right.
tells me macaroni and cheese is healthy, fuck off,
Well,
right?
not only that, but in my book, when I was writing my book, I channeled through something known as the emotional digestive cycle. And so we digest our digestion. This is what the guide said. Our digestion, like physical food digestion, is the thing that takes the body the absolute most energy to do. It takes
Absolutely.
almost all of our energy to digest. This is why we feel the urge to rest and not go swim after or go run a marathon because our body is going to need all of its energy to break the food down. So when I was using food to comfort myself, what that was doing was taking away my body's ability to digest the heavy emotions that were coming up because again that is a cycle of its own and it had to prioritize digesting the food, and so it turned the emotions off or suppressed them to prioritize the physical digestion. So that is 100% a real fucking thing.
Yeah. And that's why chewing the food and doing the macerating however many times you're going to feel like a mad person because no one does it.
I know.
You're helping every part of your body. The digestion is so much quicker. And then there are cultures that believe it. I have never looked into the science of it, but I firmly believe it. When we eat with our hands, our fingertips actually have receptors that go to the brain and help us to produce the proper digestive fluids, digestive juices to consume whatever it is we're consuming.
I believe that.
So I am such a hand eater. Like I am not classy. That's all I want. But like even last night, the man was over and I had made green beans and I just started picking them up off the plate, right? They're like totally slathered in bacon grease and they have like lemon zest on them. And I'm just like, nope, green beans are meant to be eaten with your hands. And he's like, cool. And he started doing it too. I'm like, why
Yeah.
not? Right?
I also heard that that happens when you prepare your own meals because your body's watching you
You're
prepare
touching
cuts. Yeah.
everything.
And you're putting it in
Yep.
the pan and you're cooking. So in that process, your body's already preparing itself to digest and creating those enzymes.
Yeah.
And that
It's
could be another reason why I was bloating again with the fruit because I'm not chewing it. I'm not creating the digestive enzymes. So what I used to do, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but I don't care. I used to eat my smoothies with a spoon so that I would literally make the motions of, and I would slather it around in my mouth like I was chewing it for a couple of bites, even though I wasn't, just to kind of mimic the energy. And then I got really busy and was like, fuck this, I'm going back to a straw. But, I mean, that's just good points that, we have to remind ourselves because I'm notorious for inhaling my food, but it's a
Same.
practice and presence. And so now, like the past couple of weeks, especially since I switched back to a high protein fat diet, I sit down at a table. I try not to have a bunch of distractions and I just try to enjoy, oh my God, this tastes so good. And taking that present moment and slow myself down because I will just inhale sometimes.
Right. And identifying that level of satiety is like so important. Like
Yeah.
I'm satisfied, not like, oh my God, I've ate way too much. Like there's no word. Yeah, there's definitely worse feelings, but like that is such a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you can really take the time and slow down and be like, and I'm actually good. I'm
What
a
do you
fit.
think about the vegan fats sources? Like, again, the chia seeds, the nuts, because I know eating too much of anything is not good, especially, even I know if I eat a lot of nuts, I don't feel good. So, and everybody's going to be different. But do you think it can replace the animal fats?
Again, I like to go into the idea that there's like three types of human beings out there. So for me, no.
Yeah.
I know for my body, but do I know some insanely healthy vegans that can? 100%.
Yeah.
So I think again, it goes into the idea of soaking to get rid of, I think it's called phytic acid, right? And that's that protective mechanism that's around the nut to keep um, animals and stuff from eating it,
Yeah.
protect the nut. So when we can do that, then we're getting the good stuff out, right? Um, and I love Grandmaster Chun Lin. He's the founder of Spring Forest Qigong. His philosophy, I try and embody it as much as possible. But he says good, better, best.
Yeah.
Let's go into every idea that this is good for my body. And could there be something better? Yeah.
Sure.
Do I know what's best for my body? Yes.
And
Right.
knowing that at different times you're going to need different things.
Amen.
Like there
100.
was a period of my life where I could not eat enough peanut butter. Now I make my own because fun fact, there's a lot of mold and a lot of cockroaches in peanuts.
Yes, there are. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Peanut butter
So
is
I
one of the
now buy
strongest
whole
healing systems.
shelled peanuts and I blend that shit and put a little bit of honey and sea salt and make my own in my Vitamix. And it is so good.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. But I've gone through periods where I'm like, I can't get enough of this, like sweet potatoes. I went through, I mean, I was literally eating a huge whole sweet potato every night for like 2 months. And then one day I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
My body just needed something, then it knew. And I get the same way with supplements. I will know that something's not right. And I will all of a sudden, I will just feel a pull to a supplement. And half the time I don't even know the word that I'm getting or understand it. So I have to Google it. And then I'll read what it does. And I'll be like, oh, perfect. This is exactly what I'm needing. And I'll
Yeah.
take it. And sometimes I'll take it for a couple of months. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't need to take this anymore. I did that with black seed oil. I did black seed oil for 3 months. And then I was like, yeah, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah. Everything's meant to be a season. And that's the problem with pharmaceuticals and so many others. It's like these aren't to be eternal
Yeah.
fixes, right? There has to be this waxing and waning that happens so that we can balance the body. Because as we start to introduce things that the body's low in, it will recalibrate,
Yeah.
right? And then it'll look over here. I always talk about like there's the rule of three is a rule that I live by. I don't know if it's a real rule, right? My body's going to
Christine's
identify
rule now.
Christine's rule of three, right? There's three things that my body can prioritize and yell at me about, right? And once these are taken care of, woohoo, they're going to dissolve, but other ones are going to rise to the surface.
Yeah.
Right? And now I can prioritize my vitamin E or, I don't know, what is it, vitamin K for vision? Is that what it is?
Vitamin A.
Vitamin A, right? And so now my body's going to focus on this and this because these other ones are coming back into harmony.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love, yeah, if anyone feels like, oh my gosh, I've been on this supplement and I've stuck on it for years, that's when we really got to look at the belief system.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very true. Because there's certain ones that I religiously take, and I don't know if I'm going to take them forever, but I've been taking them for a couple of years now, and they still feel good to take. And then there's some that I just drop off because I don't need like NAC during the whole, uh, you know, uh, vid thing, I took NAC for 2.5 years every day, and I kept me super healthy, but I don't take it right now. I don't take it anymore. I don't feel the call to, because I don't feel like my body's not saying we need this to help combat anything. And so it's so true. And that in pharmaceuticals, you guys, they're meant to be a band-aid for you to get your shit together. They're not meant to be a permanent thing. That shit ain't real.
Yes.
It's chemicals. It's
Yeah.
petroleum.
There can be beautiful things in pharmaceuticals, but yeah, it is a temporary balancer. It is not,
Mhm.
yeah,
I always say it's your bridge to get your shit together.
exactly.
Get it together. Oh my gosh. Well, the point of this episode was really just to talk about there's so many different belief systems that we encounter as we go through this journey, because, everybody, especially in today's age on the internet, everybody's has their opinion about what we should be doing as we wake up and evolve. And a lot of us we're channeling different beings on different frequencies with different perspectives. And the medical medium, I'm going to throw him under the bus right now just because he's a great guy. He has a lot of great information, but he has some cult-like followers who will straight run your ass over because you say that you don't like celery juice. You guys, when I did the celery juice thing, that shit was like drinking 5 espressos. I came out of my body and it did not help me. It made everything worse. And I was like, this is not for me. And I know a lot of other people that say the same thing. And, and eggs right now, I went through a phase where I could not eat an egg to save my life, but I think it was the quality of egg. And now I'm eating pasture raised eggs that have a really bright, dark, rich yolk. And my body is thriving, and there are things like eggs and pork and salmon that are very highly parasitic. But if you're not eating sugar, the parasite has nothing to feed on. So it's like, again, we have to not put what I say, what Kristine said, what the medical medium says, what anybody says over what our body is saying that we need, because there's a reason why we need it. And right now a lot of us are going through a very big shift in frequency of what our body is used to swimming in, right? So we're always swimming in a frequency. As the planet shifts into this higher frequency, whether you embody that frequency or not, you're fucking swimming in it. So your body is going to ask you for things that you're not used to. So if you're feeling that you want fatty foods, don't turn to fast food and processed stuff and high carbs. Start putting in the healthy fats again, and whatever that looks like for you. But I had to face my belief systems in that and really do research and then trust what I was getting and try it. Trial and error. I had to try it. And I was like, okay, I feel better. So if I feel better, that's my cue that it's working.
And
But
baby steps too. Go ahead. I
yes.
did not mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. You're
Right?
right.
Like, people will go in, they'll go balls to the wall and they'll have like 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and then they're going to end up on the toilet all day. And they're like, no, my body didn't like that. Remember, we're going through a healing crisis. Everything needs an adjustment period,
Yeah.
right? It's just like getting a new roommate. You're probably not going to be best friends right off the bat. And that's what we're doing. We're moving a new roommate into the body.
Yeah.
So start tiny, right? Start with a teaspoon and see how you feel and how you react to that. And then work your way up. It's just like bee pollen, right? Bee pollen can make someone that has allergies, it can kill them.
Yeah.
So we're going to start small. We might start with just 3 granules and then work our way up to a tablespoon over a number of weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone's like, God, I just listened to this and I'm going to go clear out my entire fridge and just get beef
Aren't
tallow, coconut oil, like, don't blame us. Like, please, like,
no.
baby steps. And
We're
life's
extremists as
joy.
humans. We are extremists.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I am so guilty of that.
Same.
Right? And then what do? I'll go buy like $200 in organic groceries, and I'm like, Chick-fil-A. Sounds really good. We're just gonna have waffle fries one last time before I go back.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I do
So
love me some Chick-fil-A every now and then, but it's been like 6 months because I know how bad it is. And every time I crave it, I'm like, you're not really craving that. It's all in the mind. Because
yeah,
every time I go into one of those cravings, like, oh, I eat it. I'm like, it does not taste good. It's just my mind. My mind has some kind of weird fantasy memory of something, romanticizing how good it was. And then it's not good. And I'm like, God damn it.
food is such a portal into good and bad memory.
It
It's
really is.
yeah. And then Chick-fil-A also, they just changed the quality of the chicken they're using too. So
Which is a big bummer.
yeah, but that's okay because we can find copycat recipes online and make our own at home.
Yes. Oh my God, you so can. And probably way better. Probably way better. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we could probably talk for 2 hours on this subject, but I am so glad that you were my co-host today and we got to kind of talk about this. And if you guys have comments or questions about what we talked about, drop them. There's a little area underneath the podcast that you can do that. Drop that in there because, we can have many more conversations about this. And I'm sure we will because I really enjoy having Kristine on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me anytime. Yeah. And same thing. Any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So.
Yeah. All right, you guys, I will see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.